Hey folks! In this lesson, we'll be recreating Revolut's website in Bootstrap Studio. In the process, you'll learn how to use the Appearance panel, parallax animations, and hover effects to build beautiful, responsive sites. Here's what we'll be building today. The web page consists of a fixed navigation bar, an animated hero, and cards with hover effects. We'll begin by creating a new Bootstrap 5 design. Then, we'll drag and drop the images that we'll need. You can find them linked in the video description. After this, select the body and create a new CSS block which will hold our customizations. We'll make the body's background a light gray color. I've extracted some of the colors in a text file to make it easier. The component we should design first is the navigation bar. It has a brand on the left, a few links, and a sign up and login buttons on the right. This is easy to do in Bootstrap Studio. Search for the Navbar with button component and place it on the page. Change the brand and links. After this, remove the icon. We need two buttons on the right, Log In and Sign Up. Change the text. Then duplicate the button by pressing Ctrl-D on Windows or Command-D on Mac. From the options, we'll make the sign up dark. The Login button needs to be white. We will reset its style and change its background from the Decorations group. To space the buttons a few pixels apart, activate the margin and padding mode by clicking this icon. I will select the first option. This will apply the spacing to all screen sizes because Bootstrap is mobile first. Then just drag the handle to add a right margin after the Login button. Next, we need to make all buttons rounded. If you inspect the HTML in the bottom panel, you'll see that they all have a btn class name. We will use the Appearance panel and modify its styling. To do this, create a new CSS block for the btn class. Then, set the radius property. Now we can customize the navigation bar. Create a new CSS block for it, which targets the Navbar class. We'll give it a background color by copying it from our notes. I'll also give it a subtle 1 pixel wide bottom border. To make the navbar stick to the top of the page when scrolling, switch on the Sticky Top setting. The next block we'll build is the opening section. It consists of some text, a button, and an impressive animation of icons flying out when you scroll. This effect is surprisingly simple. It's just a single background image of all icons that zoomed in on scroll. We can easily do this in Bootstrap Studio. To do so, drop a section component. And inside it, add a div. For convenience, we'll give it a label. Press Command-L on Mac or Ctrl-L on Windows and name it Hero. The label is displayed in the Overview panel, making it easier to tell components apart. We'll duplicate the div and nest it in the original. This new div will hold the hero content. Finally, add a heading, a paragraph, and a button. Select the div and switch to the mobile size. To center the content, use the Flexbox group. Because Bootstrap is mobile first, all larger breakpoints will inherit the centering. Change the heading text. We also need to center it. To do this, select the Hero Content div and set the Alignment option. Now let's make the heading larger with the Display option. We'll also make it bolder. Then edit the paragraph. To insert a line break, press Shift and Enter. Lastly, change the button text and make it dark. We'll add some padding to the content wrapper. Hold Shift to resize the opposite side. On smartphones, we will show a static image in place of the scroll animation. Just drop an image component and double-click to choose the Hero Mobile PNG. Activate the responsive option to make it adapt to the screen width. On size MD and up, we will show the background animation, so we need to hide the image. To create the animation itself, switch to the Animation tab and select the Hero div. Set the trigger type to Scroll and change the animation type to Scroll Zoom. Lastly, browse for the Hero JPEG and select it. One problem is that now there are two images on small screens. To hide the background animation, select the Hero content and add a new CSS block with the class Hero Content. Bootstrap Studio will add the class automatically to the component. Set the background to the same color as the body. Since this will hide the image on all sizes, we need to reset it on MD and up. Add a new CSS block with a media query. The app will automatically fill in the current breakpoint size, so the block applies to this screen width and higher. Now set the background to transparent. Here's the result. The page switches seamlessly from a static image on small devices to a background animation on large ones. Right now, the section looks a little crowded. The text is overlapping some of the icons and it's hard to read. We can give the content a bit more room by increasing the height. This looks better. Let's make sure it looks good on bigger devices as well. We will make the section a little bigger on this size and up. Add a new CSS block with a default media query and increase the height. The next section of the website which we'll recreate is this group of cards. Each card has a unique color, a background image, and a button. When hovered, the background is smoothly zoomed in, and the button is highlighted. To construct the cards, drop a section and inside it, a one-row, one-column component. Drop a 2 rows, 1 plus 2 columns to hold the cards. Add a heading and a paragraph in the first column. Change the paragraph's text. Set its color to muted and make it bold. Next, edit the heading. Set its type to H3 and make it bigger with the display setting. We'll make it bold too. Then, add a paragraph for the description. To center the text, select the column and change the alignment option. The heading needs a little space on the bottom. The columns that will hold our cards are stacked on top of each other. We should give them some breathing room. Select the first row and give it a bottom margin. Then select the second one and increase its vertical gutter size. The columns are spaced out well, but the section heading needs some padding. Hold Shift to resize the top and bottom padding simultaneously. Now we can start building the cards. Since they need to have a background image, we'll go with the Card with Overlay component. Drop it in the first column and change the image by double-clicking it. Add a button after the default content and edit the text. We'll make the heading a little bigger by changing the font size option. After that, change the text of the paragraph and the button. To add an arrow after the button text, add an icon, double-click it, and choose one from the dialog. The buttons in all cards have a bigger border radius than the ones in the Navbar and Hero section. To achieve this, we'll create a CSS block that only targets buttons in cards. Change the selector to Card BTN and click Save. Now we can adjust the border radius. We need to add a bit more space before the text in the button. To do this, increase the left padding. To align the button text with the heading and the paragraph, add a negative left margin. The buttons in the cards have no background color by default. It only shows when we hover over the card. Let's set the background to transparent for now. Reset the border too. We want the background image to zoom in when we hover over the cards. To achieve this, select the image and create a new CSS block with the Card Hover Card Image selector. To create the zoom effect, change the scale option. We can see that the image is now bigger than the card, which we don't want. To hide the overflow, select the card and set the overflow option to hidden. You can see how this works when we hover. The image remains within the bounds of the card. We only need to make this transition smoothly animated. To do this, we'll add a new CSS block with the Card Image selector and set the transition property. This will instruct the browser to animate smoothly from the normal state of the element to the hover one. You can see what effect this has in the browser. The ease keyword gives the transition a slight acceleration at the start and end of the animation. There are different options you can give to the transition property. You can find a link to an article with examples in the video description. To finish the card, we need to change the text color. The content could use a bit more padding. Hold Command-Shift on Mac or Control-Shift on Windows to resize all sides. Now we can start working on the other cards. Copy the old one with Command-C or Control-C and paste it in the empty columns. We'll change the text and images of the new cards. The second image has a white background, so we'll have to reset the color option we set earlier. Change the button text to primary. Quickly change the text of the third card. And then pick its background image. The first card's image is quite large on MD screens. We should switch it with the desktop version. To do this, we'll duplicate the image and double-click it to select the desktop one. It needs to be hidden on small devices. Set the display option to none and the MD option to block. The mobile image is shown by default and needs to be hidden on size MD and up. On Revolut's website, the buttons are at the bottom of the cards when viewed on desktop, which would be a good idea to reproduce in our design. To do this, select the three divs holding the content of the cards by holding Control on Windows or Command on Mac. Then set the Flex Container option to Flex. This will affect all three cards. As the default flex direction is row, you'll see that the text is now on the same line. Let's change the direction to column. Set the Align Items option to Start. Now select all three buttons and change Margin Auto to Top. This'll stick the buttons to the bottom of the cards on MD and up. The text in the first card should also be centered vertically. We can do this by using the Margin Auto option again. We can see that the text is overlapping the image, which hurts legibility. To fix this, create a new CSS block with a card content half class and add a media query so that it only affects bigger devices. All we have to do is set the width to 50%. The cards are uncomfortably wide on big screens. We'll make them narrower by restricting the width of the containers. Create a new CSS block for all containers and set the max width to 1000 pixels. The only thing left to do is to add a bigger border radius to the cards and change the button backgrounds on hover. To make the hover effect, select a button and create a new CSS block. Set the background color to primary. You can see how the button background colors change when we hover. But we can't read the text of the white cards button because both it and the background are the same color. We will set it to always be white. Now it stays visible. The last section we'll build is the footer. It consists of pricing tier cards, a large heading, and several columns with links. Luckily, we have a similar footer in the online library, which will save us quite a bit of time. Just switch to the Online tab and search for Footer with Pricing. Install it, and then drag and drop it into the body. I'll change the tier names, the heading, and button text. It looks like we have a problem with the buttons in the pricing cards. They're affected by the padding we added earlier. Create a new CSS block that only targets the pricing card buttons and reset their left padding. A few finishing touches remain. We need some space above the footer. I'll use both the margin and padding utilities to add more room. The only thing left to do is add a frosted glass effect to the navbar. Select it and increase the blur option from backdrop filters. And here is our finished design. The navbar blurs the page underneath it. The hero is smoothly animated on scroll. The cards come alive when you hover them. It is fully responsive and looks great on both large and small devices. As always, you can find the BS Design file linked in the video description. Thank you for watching this lesson. Like this video and subscribe to our channel to see more tips and lessons about Bootstrap Studio. What would you like to see next time? Leave a comment down below.